Hi, and welcome to this video where I go over the hardest bug I solved in my game. Ascendant is a grand strategy game where you play as a nomadic tribe throughout the Bronze Age. So, it's a grand strategy game made in Unreal Engine, an engine really not designed for this type of game. But I'm making it anyway, in this engine, and it's going great. And it was going great until I discovered this bug, but I solved it, so it's going great again. And if you like this sunrise, like and subscribe. That's my shilling over, and now we can get into the proper part of the video. So, what was the problem? Well, it was random. Anytime in the game, it would just break. No idea why. It would just freeze. The game would freeze. That was it. I have no idea why. So I did a bit of testing. I looked around, and I didn't notice anything. It was just random. It could happen right now. Right now, it's exactly the game I'm playing, or it could happen in a minute or two. But eventually, I found something out. It happened not on a month tick. It never happened on a month tick. So what's a month tick? Well, this game works on months. So months are the main unit of time. And how that works is every month, which is governed by this little bar here, when it fills up, it's a month tick. So a lot of processes take part. Settlement calculations, everything, tons of processes. But it didn't happen on one of those. That means it had to be one of the things that is independent of that. And that's really four things. The player, armies, settlers, and herds. So those deer we saw before. Now I thought, the player. Well, the player's been like this for a long time and I don't really do anything, so it's probably not that. Herds? Well, they've been here for a long time, they don't do much, it's probably not them. So settlers or armies, both things I've really kind of worked on recently. So I looked at them, I think it's probably not settlers because they're not doing much. It's armies, they do way more stuff. So I looked, I removed the armies, and I had no bug. I was like, yes, I've solved it. And I know what the problem is. The code I wrote for the army AI was terrible. Well, it wasn't bad, it was just not great. So right, it doesn't do what I want, the code just doesn't do what I want, so I'll remove it. And so I just chucked out all the army AI code. And then I started re-implementing bits of it. And I rebuilt up the AI, and it was working brilliantly. No bug, the armies would just walk around and do their thing. I was like, yes, this is working as I wanted to. Then I worked a bit more, and I re-added a few more things, and then it started occurring again, the bug. No. What's the problem now? So, in my test environment, which is nothing like this world here, it's all just a white grid with badly named settlements like Big City. So I worked through that and I said, hang on, it only happens when an army attacks a settlement. Okay, that's not something I can easily debug in this area because there's fog of war and all that, so I can't see everything. But in the test world it was easy to debug, so I just determined, okay, it's only when armies attack settlements. Right. So it must be some problem with the battle, or the raiding or something. So I put my debug points in, I put my breakpoints. Breakpoints are just something you put in a line of code that stops it on the editor whenever you get to that line of code. So I put those in, and it went through, and the bug would always happen on the perform casualties. So in Ascendant in a battle, casualties are basically accrued over time and put into this thing called a map. A map is a kind of data structure in programming. And what it is it's got keys and values. So it's basically got an array of keys, and each one maps, hence the name, to a specific value. So I had F names, which is a data structure, which is basically a string of characters. So a few characters, which is a name of a unit type, and that links to a number. So how many casualties has that particular unit type on the side got? So at the end of the battle, all these casualties that actually apply to the real units or the real population. And that was where the bug was occurring. I was like, hang on, yep, this is to be expected. I wrote this code with little testing. I just expected it to work. So I looked through the code, and I'm like, hang on, I put the breakpoints through and all that. And it kept freezing, I was very confused, and then I put a breakpoint on an if statement. Now, if you know much about programming, breakpoints and if statements, not the most common thing ever, still important, but not the best thing ever. And that was the thing. Whenever I got to that breakpoint, it would just continue. I couldn't move anywhere else in the code. It wasn't a different loop or anything like that. It was a specific bit of code. It just would freeze. in the editor, in debug, in release, it didn't matter. So I looked through the code and was a bit confused. Didn't seem to be any problems. Then I realised it only ever happened when the map was empty. So when I'd already cleared out all the casualties, I just cleared the map out, and I was looking through it again. It would basically go, hang on, there's a problem. So I went, okay. The problem only occurs when the map's empty. I don't need to worry about this anymore. In fact, I can make an optimization and just put an if statement in. If the map's empty, skip over all this code and continue on. When I ran that code, the if statement to check that caused a problem. So I decided, okay, if that's also a problem, what? I refactored the code a few more times, was really confused, and I did not know what to do. So at that point, I looked through the Unreal code. I was like, okay, there must be some problem. There must be some weird problem when maps are empty in Unreal maps. I was confused. I mean, how had someone else not noticed this before? They should have. I mean, you know, this is a major engine. It's big code, and I was like, oh, if I discover I'm the first one to discover this problem, you know, I can get my name on the engine in the credits as someone who discovered a bug and solved it, hopefully. But no, I couldn't find the problem. The code was good. It was fine. Of course it was. It was a major tested bit of an engine. So I looked through some more and just determined there's no point. I'm not going to solve this just by looking through it continuously. I mean, what am I going to do? What? There's nothing to do. Hence, I just decided I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm just going to refactor the code, remove this map entirely. Why was I doing that? Well, it's an important part of indie development. You can't just do everything 100% properly every single time. Why? Because you'd never do anything then. Sure, I could solve the problem. I could spend days solving the problem. But instead, all I did was I implemented a workaround. Instead of using a map, I used two arrays, approximated them as a map, a bit weird, and they worked perfectly fine. And so now, armies work. In fact, they don't just work, they even conquer settlements. For instance, this city here conquered this one. This isn't a starting settlement for them, but they managed to take it. So, that's kind of the lesson. Don't do everything the hardest way possible, because in the end, you're just going to come up with more problems. You got to kind of take shortcuts if you can, and you should, because in the end, they're actually better half the time to take a shortcut as long as you know what you're doing is proper, than spend the days working on it if you're just not going to get any actual benefit. But I've not just, worked on that. The update, which was 0.1.18, which in fact now we're on 0.1.19, so that's even better. I did a load more stuff. I kind of called it the army update in my head, and added a load of stuff. So as you can see, settlements are now capturable. In fact, I'll read off the other stuff we did. So we made Dormant AI a little more dormant. Dormant AI is just an AI mood. So all the AI in Ascendant Dawn, they all have moods which they can change between. And some AI have the AI mode called Dormant. And what that does is it means they don't want to declare war, they don't want to be in wars. And Adera and Markenberg have that AI mode, Dormant. Pladini and Aletium don't. Though, this is a very bad example, because they actually went to war, Adera and Markenberg, and Pladini and Aletium have stopped their warring now. That's more diplomacy featured I also have in this version. I also improved the slave market, which is kind of ironic because I then removed the slave market in the next version. I don't really want it in the game. It's not really within the design spec. It sort of just generates population out of thin air, which I don't like. I'd rather settlements do this. And in fact, if you look on the settlement trade screen, there's now a space for slaves and livestock, and livestock's a new thing. You saw you could capture those deer instead of just killing them. And that's a new thing. There's also a few modifications like sewers are built less, settlers are spawned less, I improved some resource AI, I made the tutorial easier to understand, and I added settings in the pause menu, and I improved the background as well. If we go back to the main menu, I'm through this, which I just think is brilliant. You know, it looks very nice, and it's really thematic because the game is called Ascendant Dawn. But that's it. I've explained everything, and next update, I'm going to be working on general UI changes and a few other things, including the showroom, which is currently blanked out, but that will be coming later.